When most people think of Milan, they picture the Duomo, the fashion houses, and maybe a day trip to Lake Como. But tucked in amongst all those big name sites are smaller treasures that many travelers never find, unless someone points them out. On my last trip to Italy to visit friends near Sassuolo, I had a day and a half when I arrived and 4 more days in Milan before I flew home to do some exploring. I joined a walking tour the first night to give me some ideas, and then I wandered on my own, often stumbling onto places that surprised and delighted me. In this video, I'm going to share those little gems. They're not expensive, they're easy to reach, and they might just add something special to your own visit to Milan. Italy has been woven into my travel life for decades. One of my very first solo trips in the late 1990s was with a tour group to Italy, and it opened the door to traveling alone. What a door to open! I fell in love with Italy, and it has become a favorite vacation spot. I've also developed friends there that have become like family. Visiting them for a few days every couple of years allows me to live like an adopted Italian uncle. Last October, feeling a yearning for an Italian fix, I went back for a 10-day treat. I compared all the flight options, Rome, Florence, Bologna, from Toronto and Montreal. And I ended up choosing a direct flight from Montreal to Milan that fit me best. Late enough in the day to get to the airport, no long connections, and reasonably priced. Choosing my flights are the first booking that I make. I get a good sense of what flights are available on sites like Google Flights or Expedia, and then I go directly to the airline website to make my booking. Be aware that even changing the date by 1 or 2 days can save you money. And if you're a flexible senior solo traveler, you have the option to make those timing adjustments to take the opportunity of getting those savings. I usually know approximately how many days I want to be away, and then I just fit everything else into the specific flights that I select. I confirmed a 5-day visit with my friends in Reggio Emilia, and that ended up giving me a day and a half in Milan on arrival and then 4 days in the city before flying home. I booked an Airbnb near the Castello Sforzesco, close to the metro station, an easy train link to Malpensa Airport, and only a 20-minute walk to the Duomo. When planning accommodation, I always consider a walkable location with easy access to public transit, safety, amenities that I might want like air conditioning or a washer or a kitchenette, and of course the price. This park is a really nice respite after my flight and while I'm waiting to get into my Airbnb. Everybody seems to be enjoying it. My first day was bright and sunny, perfect for shaking off jet lag. I wandered through the Castello Sforzesco and Parco Sempione right beside it. I happened to luck out as I was there on a day that entry to the museums were free after 2 p.m. My understanding is that this applies on the first and third Tuesday of each month after 2 p.m. and on the first Sunday of each month. So if you're able to plan your visit for one of those days, you're able to save yourself a little cash. Regardless, there's a reduced price for seniors every day. If you're a senior, don't forget to ask for that. And think about it for other spots where you might be paying admission. I spent 3 hours exploring the various exhibits and at one point found myself standing in front of a masterpiece, Michelangelo's Rondanini Pietà. This sculpture was his last, still unfinished when he died at age 88. It was carved from one piece of marble over 10 years. Some sections are polished smooth and others are still rough from his chisel. It sits in its own quiet room and you can walk around it seeing it from every angle. For me, as someone in his senior years, it was moving. An artist still actively creating right up to the end of his life. That evening, I joined a free walking tour that started near the Duomo. I'm always telling fellow senior travelers that walking tours are a perfect way to learn a city. And this one wound through corners I'd never have found on my own. One stop was Via Tommaso Marino, a narrow little street near La Scala and the Galleria. On one facade, weathered stone figures have been silently supporting the palazzo for years. Today, it's the Milan Town Hall. But back in the 1500s, it was a wealthy merchant's home. And then, this was a bit of a surprise, our tour ended inside the Starbucks Reserve Roastery. This isn't your corner coffee shop. It's a wonderful example of Milan mixing old traditions with the new. The next morning, I wandered towards La Scala. There's a museum there with a plexiglass viewing window area into the theater where you can watch a rehearsal if it's happening when you're visiting. At the ticket booth that morning, the attendant told me that at about noon, they slide those barriers aside for an hour while they have a break. So I came back then, and sure enough, I had an unobstructed view of that grand stage in the theater from a box in the balcony. This was a small tip from the man at the ticket office that had a big payoff for me. Because I had done it before, I didn't go up on the Duomo roof this time. The line was long, and I only had the morning. Instead, I explored, took photos, and simply enjoyed that square with its energy and elegance. If you've not been to Milan before, you're going to want to go into the Duomo and up onto the roof. My suggestion is that you organize your tickets online rather than wait in the long lineups to buy tickets and get into the building. After a few days visiting my friends in Reggio Emilia, I returned to Milan for a longer stay. I spent an afternoon in the Leonardo Museum at the La Scala end of the Galleria, with models of his inventions and windows overlooking the ornate arcade below. I lingered in a small cafe for a while, and then I followed my curiosity toward the Navigli canals. On the way, I stopped at the Basilica di San Lorenzo Maggiore. Outside the cathedral, a row of Roman columns still frames the square. 16 stone sentinels from a public building almost 1700 years ago. The Navigli neighborhood is a feast for photographers. These canals once carried marble for the Duomo, and Leonardo himself helped design the lock system. Today, there are cafes, restaurants, and wide paths for strolling. I spent an afternoon sitting leisurely at a cafe table with a cold beer, just watching life pass by. And then I went back that night to see the lights reflecting on the water. Milan is also full of hidden culinary treats. I found a tiny sandwich shop called Al Politico near the Castello for a perfect midday panino. And later I came across L'Alter Bar, a small wine bar with an outdoor patio, ideal for an aperitif and a bite to eat. And yes, while I was in Milan, I made sure to try more than one gelato. One last secret. Visit Marchesi 1824, the elegant pastry and coffee shop in the Galleria. You won't see it from the arcade itself. To find it, step into the Prada store and then take the stairs or elevator to the mezzanine. Suddenly, you're in a refined 19th century salon with polished wood, marble counters, and a window that looks down on the crowds below. It's a wonderful spot to enjoy a coffee and a pastry while feeling for a moment like a Milanese insider. One of the smartest choices I made was using Milan as my home base. From Milan, in just a couple of hours, you can be exploring somewhere completely different. The train system is frequent, comfortable, and inexpensive, so there's no need to pack up and move hotels every couple of days. I took one day trip to Lake Como, my first time there, and another to Lugano in Switzerland. Both were easy journeys with so much to see, and I'll likely be putting together a future video about those 2 day trips, what I saw, how I got there, and a few practical tips if you'd like to do the same. Milan is often a gateway city, somewhere that travelers pass through on their way to Venice or Florence or the lakes. But if you slow down and wander, it offers some treasures beyond the big headlines. These were the places that made my days in Milan feel special: a masterpiece in a quiet museum, centuries old columns in a bustling square, a coffee roastery humming with energy, and a hidden pastry shop above a luxury store. And remember, from Milan, you can step onto a train and reach even more adventures in a single day. If you've been to Milan and have your own favorite discoveries, I'd love to hear them. Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and I hope that these little gems add something to your own travels. See you next time.